Because of government restrictions, some passages of this program are voiced by actors and have been subtitled.
Did you pull the trigger?
Yes.
Did you kill him?
No.
Did you know what the consequences would be of what you tried to do?
Yes.
That didn't deter you?
No, no. I believed it was right.
They argue I'm a criminal, they argue I'm a terrorist. That they know that's not true. They know that we are here, that all of us are in this jail because of the political situation.
The Maze prison is unique. Behind its walls are almost 400 prisoners, to most dangerous and dedicated terrorists. They're Republicans and Loyalists who've pulled the trigger, planted the bombs and stained Northern Ireland with blood. The Maze is the electronic fortress that holds them. This summer, the Northern Ireland office gave us unprecedented access to the H blocks of the Maze, the prison that is still Long Kesh to the enemies within. Who did you try to kill?
A prominent member of Sinn Féin.
Why? Sinn Féin is a legal political party.
Well, it may be a legal political party. To me, they're the same thing as the IRA. It's just the IRA and a different name.
You don't make the distinction?
No, don't believe there is any.
Do you have any regrets about what you did?
Only that it didn't succeed. I was very young when I got involved, but I think that was just the nature of the troubles in the early 70s. I think the majority of young men from working class districts all became involved in one Loyalist organisation or another. I don't think I realised then exactly why I was getting involved, but I certainly know now.
John Gregg is one of 130 Loyalists in the H blocks. The Maze is unique because it's segregated. Loyalists live on one leg of the H and Republicans on the other. Both sides claim political motivation.
There's nothing sectarian in what I'm in here for. Basically, I thought I should be doing something for my own people. 20 years now, Loyalist people have been getting slaughtered. And somebody has to do something.
But if you wanted to do something for your people, why didn't you join the RUC or the UDR?
And what are they doing?
Fighting the IRA, helping to defeat terrorism.
But they're not. It's 20 years this is gonna... There's only one way to beat the IRA at their own game.
You were a policeman, a member of the RUC.
That's correct.
And you were involved in the murder of a Roman Catholic.
I was, that's right.
Why?
Well, basically, the murder was in response to an attack by Roman Catholic gunmen on the Protestant village of Oaxaca.
IRA gunmen?
IRA gunmen, that's right. The murder was a direct retaliatory action. There's numerous people who would understand why I did what I did, whilst they would not in any way condone.
A policeman murdering a Roman Catholic?
Well, I have encountered no hostility from my own community since I came into prison. None whatsoever.
On the wings of the H blocks, prisoners run their own lives. They're out of the cells for most of the day and given the facilities to look after themselves.
Long Kesh.
After lunch, they're locked up for 90 minutes and then for another hour over tea. The rest of the time, they're at liberty to do what they want.
Prisoners here, whilst they are individuals, are part of a group, and the fact that we are a group in the broad royalist sort of sense gives us a certain negotiating power and a certain amount of freedom, which we wouldn't have in an ordinary prison environment where every man would be very much an individual.
It's very difficult to have a replacement ball which is kept in reserve, which has just been used for 6 overs.
I
thought it was an impossibility to be here at this night of time, you know. I remember walking around the exercise yard for the first time and talking to a guy that had been in 8 months, and I'd been in 8 weeks, you know. And he asked him how long he'd been in, and he said 8 months. And 8 months was like a lifetime, you know. It seemed like a lifetime. And it was only 8 months. I couldn't even picture it. Couldn't even imagine what it would be like. It just seemed like a lifetime.
The Republican prisoners aren't far away, just 25 metres across the yard within earshot of the Loyalists. There are over 260 of them. Like the Loyalists, they're unlocked every morning at 8:30 to slop out. The prison regime treats both sides the same. The majority of the Republican prisoners were members of the Provisional IRA. Most are doing life for murder. But life doesn't mean life. How long a prisoner serves depends on his role in the murder. A trigger puller may do 20 years, a lookout 13.
The longer you're in here, the more you get into a routine. You get out, you have your breakfast, you wash, then you clean up the wing. We do that ourselves. Everybody knows what has to be done, we all do it. That would take you through to 9:30. You may go out then, exercise. One way of passing the time in here is by keeping yourself fit. Go out for a run, and for weights or something like that there. That would keep the morning going. Dinner time, I would spend reading. Locked up from 12:30 to 2 o'clock. I would read whatever I have been reading for my own pleasure at that particular time.
Do you like reading?
Oh yes, I love reading. I mean, I read all the time. I would read everything and anything, well, within reason.
I see you've got Tolstoy up there.
Yes,
Hardy.
yes, I like the classics. I like the literature. I mean, I've read all of them. I would keep them to read again and reread. And I would read anything. You know, within barring science fiction and westerns, I think I would read near enough everything else.
What's an IRA man doing reading Tolstoy and Hardy?
Because an IRA man is just like anybody else here. We are normal people in an abnormal situation.
Have you got the soup and all?
Most families would know somebody who's in jail. Maybe have a relative in jail. There's a lot of people who have passed on out to the jail since 1970 or 71. maybe I was just being reared at the right time or the wrong time from somebody else's point of view. You know, 1968, I was just coming up 12, 13, so I would have been growing up at the same time as what some people call the Troubles, but the wire situation was just developing.
You're in here doing life for the murder of an RUC man. The family of that RUC man would see you as a cold-blooded killer, not as a political prisoner, but a common criminal who deserves to spend the rest of his days in here.
Oh, I understand that that's how they would view me. Well, that's the propaganda line.
Well, that's the way that they feel, having lost their father.
Right.
The children having lost their daddy.
I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that they would, they certainly would have no love for me. Whether or not they hit me, I don't know.
Do you regret having joined the IRA?
I don't regret being a Republican if that's not an evasive answer.
It is.
But then I don't regret it.
What did you do?
I killed a identified Republican.
Why?
Because, as I said, I wanted to fight Republicanism. I think it's an evil, you know.
Did you know what you were doing when you went out to kill him?
Yes.
What was your emotion before you did it?
It's just, hate. Just hated them, you know. Hated everything they stood for. Everything about them. They're trying to steal my way of life, you know, and they're doing it instead of talking to me and telling me why I'm wrong, you know, they're trying to shoot me in submission. The British government's letting them do it, you know. It's supposed to be my government.
1,200 prison officers guard the inmates, a ratio of 3 to 1. Many joined in the 70s, some former British soldiers. For staff too, there often seems no escape. They're trapped by the money, over 20,000 a year, and trapped by the job, often unemployable elsewhere because they're a security risk. Are they ordinary criminals, the men you guard?
No. Out and out terrorists. Out and out terrorists. End of story. That's their object here is they'll not be converted. I can't reform them because they live in a terrorist community. In here, because they go down a wing and there's 25 of them. There's 25 in there who are Republican or Loyalist.
Although the maze seems relaxed enough today, with prisoners and staff often on first-name terms, the threat is always there. Over the years, they've seen a dozen of their colleagues commit suicide and 8 murdered by the IRA. The majority of prison officers are Protestants, but there's no special relationship with the Loyalist prisoners. How do you regard prison officers?
Well, I couldn't do their job. I couldn't lock up my own people, which is basically what they're doing when it comes down to it. For any sort of money, I couldn't justify it. And a lot of them will tell themselves that's all they're here for is the money. I don't think there's any principle involved in what they do.
You're under threat 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And that goes from both sides of the fence. A wing is supposed to be locked after the prisoners are let out. There's not supposed to be any more than 6 out. At any time, and the cell doors are supposed to be locked. If I was to go down and impose that, after half an hour, I'd be carried out of the wing, and the next thing, my name would be gone out as I'm a bad man, and the next thing I'd probably end up with a nice wee parcel under my car, or a bullet through the back of the head. It's the way it goes.
It takes another officer to look after my back, and I look after his back at the end of the day. But I seem to have a working relationship on both Republican Loyalist side. There's a certain working relationship. If you treat them with respect, they'll treat the prison officer with respect. To me, being a prison officer, if you're honest with the individual and do your job, you've nothing to fear. You know, like, if you look for trouble, you get trouble. Let's be honest, like, if I went down them wings tomorrow, and went down the Loyalist wings or the Provost wings, or any wing, and I started throwing the baton about, I wouldn't be there the next day.
Hitting them?
Hitting them. They would just wipe me out, just like that, as quick as my name went out.
Who runs the wings?
In a paramilitary wing, the paramilitaries run it.
Oh, right there,
100%. They run it. If I want a prisoner to do something, to brush the yard or do a job, I've got to get it okayed with their OC. They've got their OC, their quartermaster, they're one in charge of visits, they're one in charge of the tuck shop. They have all that there organised among themselves.
Raymond McCartney is the IRA's commanding officer in the prison. On the other side of the fence, Loyalists have their commanding officers too. McCartney has been inside since 1977, doing life for 2 murders. His victims, an RUC detective and a leading industrialist. The structure McCartney heads is more organisational than military. He's no supreme commander, more first among equals in a collective leadership. Their objective, to make prison life as congenial as possible. Do the prison authorities recognise you as officer commanding, OC?
In an official sense, they'll deny. I mean, they'll say that what you have here is a collection of individuals. But unofficially, at every level, from the wing OC right up to myself, the administration are aware of the structures. And we have ways and sort of means of making each other aware of what we're seeing.
Does the administration deal through the structures, although it officially doesn't recognise them?
Yeah, I would say yes, they do indeed, yes.
Right. Well, as soon as we get some instruction from him, we'll implement it. No problem. Right?
In practical terms, first of all, in the day-to-day running of the jail, small problems. Well, the PO, or the governor, would send for the man who he knows is a Republican OC, the Republican spokesperson on the wing. Send for him and try to iron out the particular problems. At each level you go to, you'll find the same sort of unofficial but official contact.
Here, the prison's catering officers are discussing a problem with the IRA spokesman on food.
The thing about the sausage rolls, they're getting smaller in terms of the size and all that there, you know. The quality's still all right.
Quality's good enough, the quality's just getting a bit small.
They're getting a bit small, you know.
The appetite's a bit better.
Getting a bit better.
Such dialogue is a recent innovation.
They were made frozen from the previous one. Spoke to your man, and all around. There was nothing we could do about it this time. It's just they were made. The next time they won't be.
Right. There's 2 things you put on. The stir fry for the main meal last week, and the fish cod type thing. In any other situation, say in England, what they do there is they try and control people's lives by locking them up more and more. Over here, they know that's not practical. So if they want the cooperation of the prisoners, then they have to come to the people who will dictate Republican cooperation with them in terms of running the jail.
But the government still doesn't call you political prisoners or even special category prisoners.
Yeah, they don't. That can't be denied. But I think the perception of us, of Long Kesh, of the H blocks, is that it is a political prison.
Republicans live in a highly politicised community, each prisoner a member of a socialist collective. Everything is pooled and shared. Once a week, each prisoner makes a trip to the tuck shop. He returns with what the tuck shop officer detailed him to buy, be it tea bags or Mars bars or crisps. A cell is a walk-in larder for daily basics and the party treats.
3 tea bags, 1 crisp.
Raymond, look, your form's arrived at last. Do you want to fill it in?
Yes.
Education plays a central part in the daily routine of both Republicans and Loyalists. Many enroll for the Open University, invariably opting for politics, economics and social science. Many take O and A levels too. But outside the classroom, down on the wings, Republicans run their own classes, with political debate and the Irish language high on the curriculum. Over the past 5 years, 27 prisoners have been awarded OU degrees, 3 with honours.
Let us give thanks to the Lord our God. Father, all-powerful and ever-living God, we do well always and everywhere to give you thanks through your beloved Son, Jesus Christ. Today the Virgin Mother of God was taken up into heaven, to the beginning and the pattern of the Church in its perfection, and a sign of hope and comfort for your people on their pilgrim way.
Eugene McCormick was 20 when he was involved in the murder of a policewoman. He drove the car. At his trial, he said he acted under duress and regretted her death. If you really regretted the death of the policewoman, and you say you were forced into doing what you did, why did you then go on and join the IRA?
Well, I was a member of the Republican movement for the previous year and a half, 2 years.
Sinn Féin?
Sinn Féin.
Not IRA?
Not the IRA.
Then you joined after the killing. Doesn't that indicate that you supported the killing?
Where my decisions were being made, you know, I was making some of them and some of them were being made for me by the situation that we were living in.
When you decided to get involved in the IRA, did it ever occur to you that you might be killed or end up in jail?
Oh yes, I mean that is anybody who joins the IRA at that point, if you don't think of it yourself, the IRA are very make great point to stress that to you, that you're not joining anything for a free ride. You're joining an organisation that the chances of you ending up in jail or dead are very, very high.
What were you convicted of?
I was convicted of killing a policeman.
What was your role?
Well, they alleged that I had supplied the information that enabled them to be shot.
As an intelligence officer for the IRA?
Well, that's what they said.
Was it right, what they said?
That depends. I mean, the issue of whether it's right or wrong or what my role or wasn't, the fact of the matter is I was convicted on the basis of a statement that was extracted from me under duress during interrogation. I was convicted in a no-jury court. Now, that's the basis of the evidence solely against me. Now, I have maintained all along that that is all that I have ever been here. I've spent 13 and a half years on that basis. I have done numerous reviews and everything else. So, I mean, what is right and what's wrong, that, to me, is what's wrong.
The battle for what Republicans call political status has dominated the history of the H-blocks. All prisoners once enjoyed special category status, with special privileges like wearing their own clothes, until it was taken away in 1976. From then on, they were branded common criminals and ordered to wear prison uniform. Republicans refused, and a series of protests began. Rejecting prison uniform, they opted to wear only prison blankets. They emptied their pots in their cells, refusing to slop out because of alleged beatings by warders. Their excreta they smeared on the walls. The government stood firm, refusing to grant any of the prisoners' 5 demands, including the restoration of remission lost during the protest. The IRA turned to its weapon of last resort, the hunger strike.
We, my 6 comrades, are prepared to go through with this. And we are prepared to die to prove that we are special prisoners and our 5 basic demands are just.
Each day as time went by, you started to realise that your body was becoming slower. Things like your eyes, your focus in your eyes started to go.
moving from the bed, wanting to go to walk or go up and watch TV, just became a thing you didn't want to do, you know.
Did your mind know what was happening?
Yes, at all times you're fully conscious. Your mind was very alert, yeah.
Even after 53 days?
Even after 53 days, my mind was very alert, yeah.
And how does the mind react when it sees the body dying?
Well, again, because the decision that you have made is made in a conscious process, so therefore the mind in that particular situation was telling you that what you were doing was correct. Obviously, if it was just for the want of food, then your mind would be saying, if you take food, then your body will survive.
But it was your own decision. The British government didn't force you to do it. If you had died, it would have been your decision to take your life.
Yeah, it would have been my decision. I decided to go on hunger strike because we felt that at that particular time the demands that we were making had already been implemented by our British government. People had been afforded the same rights that we were seeking.
In May 1981, the hunger strike reached its bitter climax. After refusing food for 65 days, Bobby Sands died. He'd been the Provisionals' OC in the maize. The world watched at his graveside. He'd just been elected a Westminster MP. Bobby Sands was the first of 10 hunger strikers to die. Have you got what those 10 men died for?
I would say, that, well, we've got our clothes. We don't do work, for whatever reason. We've got letters, visits, parcels. There's still 4 or 5 men in the camp who haven't had their admission give back to them. And they're now coming on to the 14-year stage. People who are doing 25, 26-year sentences who haven't got their admission back yet. But like, if you were to take out them 4 or 5 men out of it, I would say we would now have got what was died for.
Conditions have changed, right? At the moment we have our own clothes, right? We have better access to facilities within the prison. There's a quality of life down the jail which we feel is slowly but surely reflecting long-term imprisonment. So the comparisons between now and then obviously are stark. Like the changes are remarkable.
Today there are only proposals, not demands, and the authorities listen but don't always say yes. Loyalists too now enjoy the privileges their enemies died for.
It's relaxed because it suits everyone. It's not that they are letting us away with anything, that we're living a life already. The bottom line about prison is you're locked up and you're denied your freedom. You may, during the hours that you're allowed out for association, be able to walk up and watch a television or go into another cell and play a record player. That gives the illusion of freedom. But the bottom line is that the staff are in charge of the prison. That if the staff wish to lock me up at this moment, they can come down and do it. The fact is that the majority, if not all of the people in here, are normal. I mean, to me, this is the basic fact which seems to be cast around is these are some of the most dangerous criminals in the world, and it's possibly either psychotic or that seems to be the slur which either intended explicitly or implicitly, whichever way you like. And it costs round, it gets cost over everybody. And people are normal in here. People are normal. They may be in for various crimes to do with the Troubles, but if the Troubles didn't exist, they would not be in for any crimes.
Let me tell you the story of honor and glory of a young Belfast soldier, Big Fadian by name. For Keenan, for country, Young Billy died bravely and won the BC on the field of the Somme. So let us remember that brave Ulster soldier, the VC won, the young life that he gave for duty demanding his courage outstanding. Private Billy McFadden of the UVS.
Most people on the Shankill know that Dennis is another criminal and don't look on any of the men in the jails as criminals at all. Everyone knew him around here. And I think they were shocked actually about what did happen. But I mean, it never stopped them asking about him. And it never stopped them sending cards and just different wee things that can matter an awful lot when you're in prison. You're looking forward to it from one visit to the next. If you have your makeup and that on, it makes you feel good for a start. And it means also that if you're extra tired or anything like that, he's not seeing it, and so he's not going back worrying if there's something wrong or something you haven't told him or things like that.
What was your sentence?
Life. Well, 3 lives.
How many years?
20 years, but there was a whole lot of 20 years. I don't know what it added up to be quite honest, but they were all concurrent. So it's actually a life plus, it's a life and 20 years. That's your top sentence, that's the way it's worked.
In fact, you were sentenced to 400 years. 400 years.
Well, I'll hardly do the half of that.
What did you do?
Well, what was I found? Right. There was 3 murders. A manslaughter, for which got 20 years. Arms offences, I think attempted murders, conspiracy.
Well, the average height would be if you've got another 5'5", 6'6".
One of the things all prisoners now enjoy is a visit once a week. Their organisations lay on free transport for families and friends.
What's McLean for a visit? Thomas McLean!
All prisoners are thoroughly searched on their way to a visit, as are their visitors. That's why it can take 45 minutes to get from the outside prison gate to the visiting area. Officially, visits are limited to half an hour, but nowadays they often last much longer.
You can make a promise to someone that you'll wait a life sentence, and you have every intentions of doing that. But it just sometimes doesn't work out. There's a girl in particular I know, her husband had served 7 years, and suddenly they started becoming like 2 strangers. But then that can happen even in a marriage outside. You can drift like strangers. Up to now, I mean, we're still very close. It hasn't had an effect that way on our relationship. I mean, we can still think nearly as one. But it's how you feel now, yes.
And what about the girl? What was her name?
Because one of the girls was taken into hospital. So she was working Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, Monday and yesterday. And the answer stopped.
I don't know what way it'll go in years to come.
I don't expect guarantees, and I can't give guarantees, because we have accepted that no one can foretell the future. You just hope that things work out.
What do you think about what he did?
It's very wrong. It's very wrong.
He's doing life for murdering 3 people?
Yes.
400 years he got.
Yes. 410.
A rebel I came, and I'm still the same. On the cold winds of night you will find me. Oh, and I wish I was back home in Derry. Oh, and I wish I was back home in Derry. Johnny.
But however relaxed the atmosphere, long-term imprisonment weighs heavy, not least with the families outside. The prison authorities are now letting many lifers out for 4 days home leave in summer and 6.5 at Christmas. The condition that they've served 13 years of their sentence. Eamon McDermott was one of 48 Republican and Loyalist prisoners who qualified for home leave this summer. His father is a doctor in Derry. This will be the first time he's seen his family outside the prison for 13.5 years. Inside the maze, time has stood still. Outside, life has moved on.
Slightly strange, to be honest, being in the, because it's something you never really thought you'd be out now until your sentence is over. So to go out here now for this couple of days, it's strange, you know, it's odd.
So after 13.5 years?
Yes, I mean it's that length of time, and it's disconcerting. You know, the guards like this.
Why?
Well, he says you get you have this sort of, you live here. You set yourself up into a routine. You just go on, and especially with the life race with no date, you don't think of sort of outside to a great degree. You take it as it comes. See, with a sentenced prisoner, he has a date. He'll be aiming towards that date. Lifer doesn't aim towards anything, so you just go on, and then all of a sudden this comes up and it changes everything. I mean, it's putting you into a whole new way of thinking. You have to think about outside now, because I'm going out there. I'm going to say it.
So you want to go?
Oh yes, well you want to go in the sense, yes, obviously. I don't think anyone would refuse to get 4 days out of here. I mean, so you want to go in that sense.
Thank you.
How are you?
Not too bad. Give me your full name.
Eamon McDermott.
Your date of birth.
2nd of 3rd, 57.
And your last address.
Sadly done.
Okay, thank you. You've been granted a period of 96 hours summer home leave to commence this morning. That is the 16th of the 8th, 90. You must return to Maze Prison on or before 11 o'clock on the 20th of the 8th, 90. Failure to do so will mean you become unlawfully at large. This can be a criminal offence as well as an offence under prison rules, depending on the nature of the absence. Now, obviously, whilst you are out, you're to be of good behaviour at all times, and we request the right to recall you at any time and for any reason. However, that is largely dependent on your behaviour whilst you're out. Do you understand those conditions?
I do.
Are they acceptable to you?
Oh, yes.
Okay. There are 3 copies in total. The top copy goes to yourself, okay? I suggest whilst you are out, you keep that copy on your person at all times. It means if you're stopped by a local patrol, you can produce it there and then that you're legally out from custody. Should you not have that form on you, they'd be quite within their rights to, in fact, detain you until they phone the governor here, indicating that you are, in fact, legally out. Thank you. Have a good home leave.
Yes, it's not.
Great outdoor jacket. Great outdoor jacket. Fawn shirt. Play underpants.
Long wait, you know. Can't really talk about it properly. 15.5 years, a long, long time. Just 20 minutes.
Frightening some ways. Not knowing how he's going to react or how he's going to see a lot of changes. But still, it's nice to see him getting out of those gates for the first time anyway.
It's been a long time.
Yeah. A long time.
Nothing has happened. Should check that at this stage.
Somebody else must be getting out over there.
Don't forget to tell Captain Gallagher. Oh, no problem. I will sort out. Do that and go back, right? Look out yourself and see. Say I go back, yes. Right? All the best. Oh, I'm
Hi, David.
Well, no problem. Okay. What happened to your hair? I got cut some shot. Get out of here.
Right, okay.
Okay. Okay. Right, no problem. Hey, he's all right. No problem, right? He's all right, mate. How you doing, Miss McCormick? How you doing? Great. How you doing? Sarah, how you doing? How you doing? Goblin, how you doing? How you doing? Great. Great. All right. I can't believe it.
And I wish I was back home in Derry. In our rusty iron chains we cried for our wains. Our good women we left in sorrow. As the men sails unfurled.
As Raymond McCartney sped home to Derry, Loyalist prisoners too were on their way to 96 hours of freedom, to communities in the Shankill and East Belfast.
And I wish I was back home in Derry.
Letting prisoners out on home leave is a humanitarian gesture, but it's also a strategic move by the authorities. They hope it will help undermine community support for the paramilitaries and unsettle the prisoners by loosening the ties that bind them to their organizations.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Just overwhelmed with time, Mitchell. Richard, how you doing? Okay.
Back in H8, the Loyalists are preparing for a special event, the commemoration of the 300th anniversary of the Battle of the Boyne. They'd spent 4 months getting ready. The authorities chose not to intervene because there'd been similar celebrations for the previous 2 years, and the regalia would be handed over at the end. In the great scheme of prison life, they believed it wasn't an issue.
There's a lot of time involved. The stuff is made from bits of scrap paper and the insides of toilet rolls and mop heads and stuff like this here. So to translate it from that, you know, is a considerable degree of effort.
That's been all right. You line up at the front door. No, see you there. That's it. Next, please.
I suppose to a certain extent we are being triumphant because we're celebrating a battle that was won. But it's our way of celebrating. Basically, we can show that even in these conditions, we can celebrate something very important to us. We're not downhearted, you know what I mean? We're able to celebrate and enjoy it. I'm a person who believes that if Northern Ireland is to prosper, is to remain in existence even, separate from Era, that we must reach a situation politically where Protestantism is the dominant ethos in the state and where Protestants are back in control of all aspects of the state, militarily, politically and all the rest.
Would you do it again?
No, I'm quite unambiguous in saying no, that I wouldn't be involved in that type of activity again.
Murder is not a behaviour your conscience can accommodate, you know. More so, I think, when you're brought up to respect people, authority, property, you know, the Protestant way. And I felt in the same level as these people brought me down to their level. You know, I'd reduced to their level of murder to prove a point, you know. It's not so. It's not so much nice, you know.
I would not advise anyone to get involved in violence. You know, I don't wish to see anybody arrive at the situation where I'm in. I wouldn't like to see, and I wouldn't like to see this country still going through it in 20 years' time, which of the rising generation do take the path I took, it will be going through it. I don't want to see that. Don't want to see that for anyone. You know, for me, it's too late. But I wouldn't like to see anybody else becoming involved, because it doesn't achieve anything in the end.
All right. I'll see you.
After 4 days at large, all the Home Leavers returned, Republican and Loyalist alike. No prisoner has ever failed to come back because he knows that to do so would jeopardize this brief taste of freedom for his comrades.
Thanks, Sam. Stand up, boys.
Home leave can be hard for the families and frustrating for the prisoners. Unlike those with fixed sentences, lifers don't have release dates, but their position is constantly under review. They know they have to serve time commensurate with what they did and no longer be deemed a security risk.
They let me out twice a year, but it doesn't lead to anything. I mean, there's a certain illogicality about it. And the British government are saying you're no longer a risk. You're safe to let out for 4 days. But yet they cannot release me. There's no logic about that there.
Are you a risk if you were released?
No, I mean, I'm 33 years of age now. I think that the IRA would not want. I mean, even if I wanted to go to them.
Would you want to?
No, I'm a Republican. I could see myself possibly playing some role in the Republican movement within Sinn Féin. I mean, I'm not the sort of calibre now at this time that the IRA is looking. I don't think the IRA is going to be looking for the likes of me back. I don't think they need me. And the IRA, obviously, for the way the jails is still full of young men, have no problem attracting recruits. They don't need a 33-year-old security risk.
Don't men inside the prison feel that the way the IRA campaign has been going has been counterproductive?
Well, there would be people who would question, I mean, that sort of those incidents where civilians are killed. Yes, of course, much as all Republicans should, because if people are non-combatants, then they shouldn't be killed.
Isn't the only way to avoid that to stop the campaign, to end all the armed struggle?
But that's back to the fundamental issue. If the IRA tomorrow morning decided to call off the campaign, then within 10 years, other people would reach the same conclusions, and you'd have an armed conflict in Ireland. It mightn't be the IRA, it could be another group, but the fundamental issue that brings people on the streets to resist British rule in Ireland will remain as long as the British are in Ireland.
How do you see your role when you are finally released?
Continuing as a Republican and behaving probably in a more determined way, and that, as I said a minute ago, I know where I'm going now. If you ask me, it's a sort of straight question, do I see myself having a political role whenever I would get out? I would like to think that some of what I have acquired in here will be able to be used to further republicanism in a political way, aye.
My lord, where am I?
You regard yourselves as political prisoners. Do you regard Loyalists as the same?
Yeah. The Loyalists are in jail because of the political conflict in the 6 counties, so therefore they are, in essence, the same as us.
To resolve that conflict at some stage, do you have to talk to them?
In a jail sense or in a wider context?
In a wider context.
Well, I would say that obviously as people sit down, they create the circumstances to have peace in Ireland, then all parties involved in the conflict will have to be part of it. And obviously the sort of the Loyalist people will choose their representatives, and I don't think it's up to Republicans to pick who will represent the Loyalists. And it should be vice versa.
I think the only way it's going to end is there is going to be a compromise, which is not a very popular thing to be saying, and something I wouldn't have said a few years ago. I'm not a politician, so I can't say what they're going to have to give, but I think everybody is going to have to give a little to resolve the situation.
Does that solution involve those IRA prisoners on the other side of this wing?
Well, it would have to involve everybody. Otherwise, there's no solution.
BBC News at 6 o'clock. Good evening, this is Katrina.
A part-time member of the Ulster Defence Regiment was shot dead by gunmen early this morning.
Police in Belfast are investigating the shooting of a Catholic man in the south of the city early today. 2 gunmen broke into a house in the Ormeau Road area.
They shot him 5 times in the head and chest before escaping on foot.
The explosion tore apart his car early this morning and he died a few minutes later.
2 men have appeared in court in Armagh, accused of murdering the 3 police officers and a Catholic nun who were killed by an IRA...
Well, they haven't yet established a motive for the attack. One theory police are investigating is that it may have been linked to an internal Loyalist paramilitary dispute.
The Northern Ireland Secretary, Mr. Peter Brook, has asked for a full report about the ambush of Mr. Robinson and 5 prison officers.
Within the last hour, the IRA has confirmed that the 2 men who were shot dead in County Armagh early yesterday were members of the organisation.
Troops ambushed them at Loch Goal, County Armagh, shortly after midnight, as they were apparently retrieving a cache of guns.
BBC News at 9 o'clock on Wednesday, the 24th of October. Terrorists have bombed 2 security checkpoints in Northern Ireland, killing 6 soldiers.
January the 13th this year. 3 men robbing a betting shop in West Belfast are shot dead by undercover soldiers. Witnesses claim the men were given no chance to surrender and that they were shot repeatedly, even on the ground. 2 of the robbers were unarmed, the other carried a replica gun. The deaths brought renewed allegations of a shoot-to-kill policy, but the government rejected calls for an independent inquiry, and the police spent several months in what they call careful investigation of the circumstances. Today's confirmation that the RUC have recommended that the Director of Public Prosecutions should not prosecute the soldiers involved has been condemned as a disgrace by the families of the dead men. They insist only a trial or a full inquiry will answer what they feel are 2 vital questions. Were the men under surveillance in the weeks before the shootings, and did the soldiers use reasonable force to prevent the robbery? The robbers who died outside Sean Graham's bookmaker shop at the junction of the Falls and White Rock roads were 23-year-old Peter Thompson, 25-year-old Eddie Hale, and 43-year-old John McNeil. A 4th man escaped from the scene uninjured and undetected. John McNeil was a small-time criminal with a record stretching back to the 60s. His convictions included assault, burglary, and handling stolen goods. He was an occasional associate of Hale, Thompson, and the fourth man, who were members of a criminal gang based here at 80 Upper Dunmary Lane in South Belfast. Around Christmas last year, 5 gang members were living in the house. None had any terrorist convictions. Indeed, Hale had previously been the victim of an IRA punishment shooting. The gang dealt in credit card fraud and robbery. They also handled stolen goods from a number of sources, including the spoils of joyriders. On December the 9th last year, joyriders from the Twinbrook estate in Belfast stole a black Vauxhall Nova from the city centre and drove it to the Homestead Inn at Drumboe, between Lisburn and Belfast. Here they set about swapping it for a Nissan Bluebird for the return trip. The Nissan was being used by members of a covert army surveillance unit